Hi, welcome to the Making of the Cape Verdean. My name is Jeannie Costa, and I am the producer. The Making of the Cape Verdean is a platform which enables me to highlight the rich history and culture of Cape Verdeans throughout the New England and New Bedford area. In today's program, I will be interviewing Mrs. Marlene Tavares and talking about her accomplishments and her contributions to the New Bedford community, which is immeasurable. So as I like to say, sit back, relax, and take some time to hear about Marlene Tavares' life and her extraordinary accomplishments and her contributions to the city of New Bedford. Thank you. This has been, like I said, this is a major accomplishment.
Yeah.
You've done something that, like you said, there's been no other place in Massachusetts that's been able to accomplish this.
Yeah. Now, the designs and the color of this place, when they were just doing the renovating, and of course you have to sit and plan all of the stuff and everything, I happened to go to Boston because my daughter lives in Hyde Park.
Right.
I happened to be in Boston, and I saw some buildings going up and everything. I said, gee, that's different, whatever. I said, I got to try to see if I can get our place like that. And sat with the architect again and everything. We want different colors.
Nice, right.
And that's where that came about.
It brightens up the whole
Give
area.
it different colors
Right.
and everything. So had to sit down and go over that and get that all picked out and whichever. Yeah, and it turned out, yeah.
It did. It looks, like I said, people drive and they go, it just opens right up. As soon as you pass Chanton, you come into this area.
Yeah.
It just looks so bright and so.
Now, the name Temple Landing,
I wanted to ask you about that.
well, when we did all the renovation and all, now we wanted to get away from the stigma of United Front, which the city made it such a bad reputation, and we wanted to change that. And Paul wanted it also changed and everything, so they could really promote good living and promote good residents and all that. And so, okay, what kind of name we're going? Nobody's coming to name. And I says, okay, let's keep it black. United Front, okay. I went downtown the library and I saw the statue,
Lewis Temple.
Lewis Temple. And I have a book that has, so I said to the guy, I says, let's name it Lewis Temple. And Roger Brown, who works for Paul, Lewis Temple, I says, yeah. He says, let me research it. I says, yeah, he's history. And I says, and he's black, and the first black in this city. And he's got a statue. I says, let's name it.
He revolutionized the whaling
Yeah.
industry.
And I said, so he went and he studied it, and he researched and everything. He came back. He says, okay, let's go to Temple Landing. So there it is.
Well, and I was so proud when I saw it because, first of all, my former brother-in-law is the one that's his statue there.
Right.
Of Lewis Temple. Now, when I started the scholarships for C-Lab, it was named, that was in 2006, the Lewis Temple Scholarship Fund. So that's the fund that I chair to this day. And when I saw that you guys named that temple, I was like so happy. I said, and then people that live here, that I've had to tell them, I said, do you know why that's named Temple? I said, it's Lewis Temple. He went, really? I said, yeah. I said, read it. I want you to read it. I said, people should know the history of that. I said, this man revolutionized the whaling with the temple's toggle.
Yeah.
I said, I said,
It
not that
had
I'm happy that we still
connections
whales,
to every bit and every part of us. Yes. Yeah, that's what it was. Temple Landing.
Okay, so you have with you which book? Can you turn it around and put it so we can see it? That the African American Cape Verdean Americans in New Bedford, a history of community and achievement, and that was done by Robert C. Hayden. So you're in that book. Can
Yes.
you just show us the page? Is a photo of when that, just leave it for now.
Yeah.
You're hiding it because you got another pamphlet there in your hand? Okay, so that's a photo there, which we'll scan that later, and it shows when you started with the United Front, and that was the groundbreaking day?
Yeah, that was.
Okay, so we'll scan that.
Yeah.
We'll scan that later.
Groundbreaking of this development, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, so now I just want to kind of rewind, because you said that at some point you were working with the court.
Yes.
You was working, and was that you wasn't working at UMass at the same time? as the
No,
court?
UMass. I transferred from UMass to Superior Court in, I think, 1980.
Okay.
Or
What were you
81.
doing at UMass?
UMass, I was dormitory. Worked in the dormitories,
Okay.
in charge of the dormitories, and then they transferred me to administration building, in charge of that building. Yeah.
So that was like an interim position, or was you still, because that was a paid position as
Yes.
opposed to you working all the other stuff that you're done, which was
Right.
voluntary.
Oh no, that was state pay.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
State pay.
So you worked there at the dormitories.
Yeah,
And
and then I worked at the ad building, and 1980, I got sick, and I says, oh no, I wanted to keep going,
When you
and
say you got sick,
I got sick. I think my kidney was starting to get sick again, and I went up to Mass General, and I ended up in the hospital, stayed in the hospital, had surgery and everything, came home.
what kind of surgery did you have?
I think it was bladder surgery and all that, and then
Which had resulted from your kidney, a kidney
yeah,
infection or something?
a lot of things was happening. I just was awfully sick. And then I came home and to recuperate, and then I says, no, working at UMass, those buildings are all cold because it's all made of stones and
Cement
everything.
yeah.
And I said I was catching cold. So I asked for a transfer, and I got to keep my state pay.
Right.
And I got transferred to Superior Court, in charge of Superior Court,
Doing what?
custodian. Just in charge of the building, make sure everything is in order.
Okay, but
And
what was your job?
and the-
What the job title?
Custodian.
I see.
Yeah.
Is that, okay.
I was the first. I think the man that was the custodian in that building was
The head custodian?
head custodian.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what was Tarzan? What was Tarzan's
Yes,
real name?
yeah, that's, everybody knew him as Tarzan. I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about though, yeah.
And he had passed away, so that position was open. And so he says, they're going to put a female there, and all the other guys that were working under me, okay. But I worked my way with them, and everything was good. So
And you earned their respect, which they should have respected
Yeah.
you anyhow.
Yeah.
But we know that there was all those positions that were filled with men.
yeah, and they would take off, go play golf, whatever. I'd stay there and be charged, charged the building. And Third District Court was just getting built and getting ready to open up again and all that. And
Third District Court where?
Third District Court down on 6th Street.
Right.
Yeah.
Sixth and Elms.
Yeah,
Is it
6th and Elm.
Yeah.
And all that. So, of course, being
Because originally, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
Go ahead.
originally you was at Third District Court down on Pleasant Street. Is that where you started, right on Pleasant Street?
no, Superior.
Oh, you was at Superior Court?
Superior Court
Okay, on County Street?
on County Street.
Okay, County and Union.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
County and Court.
County and Court
Court,
and Union.
yeah, Superior Court. Yeah, and being a state worker, okay, I got sworn in by Mr. Grant from the state, and you're in charge. So being in charge of all the state buildings, Superior Court, the new Third District Court, the old Third District Court on 6th Street, all were under the Bristol County.
Okay.
We were in charge. So I would be able to move from different buildings to the other whenever. Because they had different men that were custodians in their buildings. See, being a custodian, you had the master key to everything
But were you the head custodian?
of the
Okay.
at Superior Court. And then I transferred. They needed somebody, I think, because someone else passed away down at Third District, the new one. So then I started going down there. The Register of Deeds. Used to go work there. So my job was all over, wherever they needed me to be in charge for the day or whatever. Because you have to open up
Right.
6 o'clock. You open up the building at 6 o'clock. All the rooms, you have to make sure everything is all. You have to make sure that windows and all, you have to make sure that the cameras were good. You have to make sure that everything was proper.
When you say cameras,
They have cameras in all those buildings.
so you had to check all that out.
Yeah,
To make
all
sure
that.
it's running.
Yeah, and everything, and then you have to lock up. That's the other thing is you have to lock up. You have the key. In fact, I think I still have a key.
So much for security, huh?
Yeah, but they changed. Don't
Well, they
worry.
would trust you anyhow,
Yeah,
Marlene.
and the other thing is, after you retire, they change locks. Don't
Oh, do
worry.
they?
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
they change locks. Yeah, that doesn't stay forever.
Yeah.
They change the locks
So
because
you must have.
because
What
people-
was the most interesting case? I'm sure that you was around that you saw at that time.
An interesting case was the Superior Court was the what was the name of that case, Gene?
With the drugs?
Yeah, the drugs and those girls that all got killed on the highway.
Oh,
Those big
yes,
cases.
yeah, that case.
Those
was
were the big cases.
Now, wasn't it the one guy that they thought it was the what was
A
his
lawyer.
name? Yeah, the lawyer that they
Pont.
thought it was Pont. Yeah.
Yeah. Those were the cases there.
Really.
Oh, yeah. And there was a lot of interesting cases.
Right.
I learned a lot with that because,
Were you able to go into the?
oh, yeah, I was able to go into everything except for when they have a jury trial and stuff like that. You got to make sure everybody's cleared and nobody's interfering. Like that. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, all the DA officers, the DAs were there at Superior Court. They had and then the DA was at the Olympia building.
All right, so we're going to continue with Marlene Vivian Tavares, and we've been talking about her growing up here in New Bedford and how she got involved in community organizing. And when we left off, Marlene, we were talking about United Front and Temple's Landing.
Yeah.
So now with us today, could you say your name, please?
Donald Gomes.
Donald, and who are your parents?
My father was August Gomes. My mother was Junior Tack Gomes. Actually, her maiden name is Montero. She was born here. My father was born in Fogo. His mother's name was Maria Correa, and his father was Julio. Even though he was born in Fogo, they lived in my grandmother and my father lived in Brava. Don't ask me about all that, how that went down with my grandfather and everything else, but I know my father and my grandmother lived in Brava. As I said, my mother was born here.
So where, do you know where your mother's people came from?
Bravo.
From Bravo as well?
Yeah. My mother's people are Bravo. Yeah.
Do you know about what year that your father came here?
My father came here, I believe, was 19, oh God, 16.
Okay.
Just before World War II, or just, yeah, was probably either 15 or 1915, 1916 he came here.
Did they come right to New Bedford?
I believe so. I
Uh-huh.
believe so, yeah. I believe they came, yeah, probably on one of the packet ships that were running then. I won't say that it was the Ernestina because I don't think it was.
Mm-hmm.
The
None of them
Ernestina
days.
came. The Ernestina came later.
Right.
So I don't know. To tell you the truth, I don't know how we got here.
Yeah. So when they first, what I like to try to find out too is when people, where they moved to. Did they live in the south end of New Bedford? Or,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I know I grew up with you, and we grew up. Well, you're much older than I am, but
You're right, Gene.
but we grew up. I know we all grew up in the south end area. Like you was on South
South
First
First
Street.
Street. Yeah.
Is
Well,
that
that's
the
where
first house you remember?
Oh, that's the only place I
That's
remember.
okay. Yeah. No, I didn't know if they lived someplace before.
I believe my father has always lived with his mother. As a matter of fact, growing up, my grandmother, his mother, lived with us where we grew up on South 353 South First
350.
Street.
I was going to ask you the number.
Was probably the last house standing during the South End Urban Renewal. I believe it was the last house standing. Is a 3-decker. And so, like I said, my grandmother lived with us in those days. That's how it was.
Mhm.
And my mother's people,
Yep.
unfortunately, I didn't know. They all, with the exception of my two aunts, Maria Tacker, Rodricks.
What is Taka?
It's a nickname, a family nickname.
Mhm.
And Maria Tacker and Antonia Tacker, her last name was Brito. And they, as far as I know, those are the two on my mother's side. That's the only people I know. Her brothers, she had several brothers were killed in collision in Buzzards Bay with a tanker.
Real.
Yeah, two brothers, and she had my mother was a twin. You didn't know that, did
No,
you?
I didn't.
I
No.
know.
Yeah,
I know
my
y'all are a
mother-
twin, but I
yeah,
didn't know your mother was.
Yeah,
My mother was a twin too.
Yeah, my mother was a twin, and her twin passed when they were young.
Is it female?
Yeah, two
That's
girls.
going to take.
Two girls. My
Yeah.
mother, I think her name was Ida, Julia and Ida.
Okay.
Yeah, and she had two brothers. I had three brothers, but I didn't know any of them. My mother's side, except for the two aunts. My grandmother and my grandfather on my mother's side, I never knew either.
But you had a big family here, cousins.
Oh
and
yeah,
big
cousins
family.
oh yeah. Well, there's 11 of us
Right.
in my
Yeah.
family, and my Aunt Mary had 6, 7,
Mhm.
and Antonio only had 3 that I know of. The 3 kids. No boys. Antonia had only 3 girls, Lily and Yai. Her name was Marion, and Sandra.
So just because how I also I asked Marlene about who she was married to, how many kids. So you were married to
Carol
Carol. What was Carol's maiden name?
Mendes.
Mendes, and she's originally from
I imported her.
from where?
Nantucket.
Nantucket. Okay. So you imported her from Nantucket, and you and Carol have how many kids?
2.
2. Okay. So you have any grandchildren?
I have 5. I have two kids. Prior to getting married, I have 2 children. Too.
Okay.
And
So name your children.
Desiree, Martin, Carlos, Martin, Donnell, Gomes, Tally, and Deanne, Gomes, Stanley.
Okay. And your
The-
grandchildren.
Yeah. Deanne has 2 kids, 2 children. Cameron, Stanley, and Haley Stanley. As a matter of fact, Haley cut my hair.
Okay.
She's
Good for
18.
Haley.
She's 18. She's a senior at both. Cameron is a senior at Bridgewater, getting ready to graduate in May, and he'll be commissioned 2nd Lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps.
All right.
And
When
I'm very proud of
was
him.
you in
Yeah.
the Marines?
Yeah, I was
yeah,
in
I
the
thought
Marine
you was
Corps.
in the Marines. Yeah.
And then my son Carlos Martin has 2 girls and a boy. Uh, Nancy Hope Martin and Hope Martin and Kellen Martin. Kellen is a junior. Hope graduated from college. I don't even know what they're doing. She's doing. Nancy has 2 children,
Mm-hmm.
a boy and a girl. The girl is great, so that makes me a great grandfather.
Okay.
She's 6, and the boy just turned a year in December.
Okay. So I'm going to jump right into how did you first start getting involved in community organizing? Because I know you was a student in New Bedford High, you graduated, and then you went to Brown, right?
Nope, I went to service.
Oh, you went to service. That's right. You went to
I
the
went
service.
right into service
Yeah.
after high school in July.
And you was okay. So you was in.
I didn't get involved until actually on board
I introduced
South Central. I was involved with.
So Marlene, you're saying
Marlene.
that you introduced him to.
Yeah, she was a contact worker doing stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, why don't you
From
guys
the
come to a
band
meeting?
called- Yeah.
You know,
I used to go to the
I
band.
should strangle her, but all that stuff I got into after that.
What was the first thing you started getting involved with?
Oh, I was involved with Ombud.
So what did you do? What was your role?
I don't know. I was on the board at the South Central. I mean, the neighborhood center in South Central.
Is that the place you were talking about? Was on County Street?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Connie and Allen.
Connie and Allen.
Right.
At the church, Old Methodist Church.
So, what did you think when you started getting involved? And did you think that there was as many issues as they probably brought
Oh,
forward? Like
yeah.
you need to do? You understood
Didn't-
that.
Actually, didn't pay attention to much of the issues. You know, being a newlywed, because I was just married them days, not long.
Home from the
You
service.
concentrate more on earning a living and providing for the family than you do with a whole lot of other issues. I didn't have a whole lot of trouble I was very fortunate. I have a lot of trouble getting a job. So, but after getting involved in onboard, you start seeing about, Jesus, a lot of people have problems. I didn't, because I didn't mean anything. And most of the guys that I hung with all worked. So it wasn't something that you were really concerned about in a personal way. You know what I'm saying?
Well, like Marlene, her pivotal point was her daughter going to school, and she said she got to get involved with PTA.
Yeah.
So, but your pivotal point was kind of like coming out, her recruiting you, and then you started seeing some of the issues.
Well, you sit at meetings and listen to people talk, and you start listening to what's going on and say, hey, wait a minute, there's something wrong with that picture. I mean, I hung around with your brother Butch and Bobby Santos and Bobby Pina. All of us, Lou Gomes, Flip, who else? I mean, there's like 10 of us, 12 of us.
Mashi Raymond.
Everybody was working.
Mm.
I mean, everybody had a job. There was no, wasn't an issue for us in terms of the whole unemployment, in terms of the discrimination, in terms of unemployment. We all were working.
What age?
Who knew? I mean, at that time, who knew that we were talking about low level, not low level, because some of the guys had decent paying jobs, but you would think about it, they were entry level jobs, and that there was no expectation that you was going to go anywhere
Good
else.
What age was that you're saying about?
Oh, I was out of the service, so I must have been
that's
like
the
23, 24 years old. 25, I got married at 24, so yeah, at that age. But like I said, I'm working, so it's not an issue. And the people you hung with are all working, so it's not an issue in terms of what other people are facing. There was a whole lot of folks up that I didn't hang with, but I knew who weren't working because of this whole issue that we were dealing with in terms of discrimination. There wasn't a whole lot of entry-level jobs to go around, so
Right, right.
so it's limited, and the pool was limited.
So Marlene, you brought them.
Yeah,
to,
I used to go to the band club, not for entertainment, just as my job. Go there and see all the guys to try to recruit and get people involved with the poverty program.
And what year was this about?
This was
65,
like, yeah,
66.
63,
Okay.
63, 65.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's because the band club, that's where the fellas all used to be in the afternoons, after work, whatever. And how I recruited them and got them to get up to County Street in Allen. I said, there's a basketball court in that church. And I got them to go play basketball. And all the guys went up to get basketball, and I calmed them all into a meeting. And they got into a meeting and
Well, that
started
was a good way. And that was probably some of your training that you got when you went up to Boston,
Right.
how to get people and
Involved.
get them involved and
Right.
stuff. So when you got up there, did you like immediately go into a meeting, or did you kind of like
Yeah.
stay on the peripheral for a while and wait?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
believe it or not, I was never one to just jump in.
Right.
The pool might be too deep,
Mm.
so I didn't immediately jump in.
So what was your first interest when you said you started to see?
I have
some of
no
it?
idea. I cannot tell you what set me off, so to speak.
Yeah. Because once you got
It
set
must
off,
have been.
you got set off.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. It
Yeah.
was, yeah.
So
And
you
I
know,
can't
sometimes
tell
we
you
always
what it
know.
was.
I know, but sometimes we always know, like, oh, I can't believe this is happening, and boom, you get involved in something. But it was gradual.
I don't. Yeah. I kind of think it was, and maybe. You know, I was good friends. I still am good friends with Greg Centeno. And Greg at the time, if I'm not mistaken, was the
unemployed.
field rep. No. Was the field rep for? He did work in the unemployment office. But he became the field rep for the Mass Commission of Discrimination, and
Then my
in
brother-
those days Butch followed him, I think.
Yeah.
But when Greg was there, we were fortunate enough in those days to have a field office in New Bedford, which we still need a field office in New
Right.
Bedford.
And the one
but
where
it's
my
not-
brother was at was
Yeah.
222 Union Street.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think Greg was across the street, kitty corner to that. Was it the Bristol building maybe?
Is that the
It's
name?
across. You know, it was the.
The luggage store was downstairs.
Yeah.
and
Yes.
upstairs, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I know. the
Yeah.
name of the
And
building.
on board was in one of those those buildings also.
No.
The beginning of on board.
No, the beginning Homeboard was down when they were down there above the second floor there, 18th South
Across
Water
from the
Street.
Y.
Yeah.
No.
It was the first one.
The
that you
first
talked about.
one, because Gene.
Oh, same
Smith-
building. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. You're
yeah.
right. They were in the same
Masonic
building.
building.
Is it the Masonic building?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bonnie Frank had his field office there. His
Right,
New
and it's
Bedford
still there,
office in
isn't
that
it?
building. Well, Bonnie Frank's no
No,
longer.
but I mean
I
that
don't know.
office is still
I don't
there.
know.
Yeah, because I've been over, and I think
Keating's
it's still there.
there now. So anyway, Greg's office was in that building. So Greg and I used to talk all the time. Like I said, we were tight, and some of the stuff that was couldn't tell me specifics. We didn't talk about specifics of people who made complaints, but just talking about in general stuff that was happening. Donald, you wouldn't believe this, you know. So I guess that kind of got me thinking about doing
other
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to kind of fast forward because I know you was involved in a lot of things before the United Front came along. But
well, a
Marlene and
few.
I were discussing the United Front
A
piece.
few.
Oh, there was a few. I know. I mean,
Yeah, with on board.
with
and-
everything. With,
Yeah, but most of the stuff that I was involved in it came through because of my involvement with Onboard, the neighborhood center. Having a big mouth, I guess.
Well, you had to back
Oh,
then. I mean,
God,
for all the
yeah.
things that, because once the riots took place up here,
Oh, that was
and then
hopeless.
That was
That really set people off.
yeah, exactly. I mean, so that was very instrumental in
Yeah.
a lot of these buildings being burned down. But I think the plan was already in place to do urban renewal, wasn't it?
Oh,
Already
yeah.
going
Yeah.
on, yeah.
Urban
So-
renewal came in before on board,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
on board followed. And then when I did
Yeah,
the
the South Terminal.
right,
South Terminal came first, and
Yeah.
then
Right.
because
And
of
I've got
that,
photos of that too, which I want to
Yeah.
show on here.
after that, Redondo came in, and then
after we got after
this, the
I got-
Western Urban Renewal was
Yeah.
shortly after that.
after we got Donald, Lou Gomes, and and Butch, and most of the guys at that meeting at the church there on Allen and County Street. Then we started giving the different fellows positions, becoming members of the on board, OEO on board, and
Right.
and then I think that's when you got appointed as something in on board, and then you started working for on board.
Oh, I SEP. Yeah, I went to work for
Before
Council. Oh, I was on a member of the board
Yeah.
at the neighborhood center, and then I went to from the neighborhood center, I became the rep to
Yeah,
the main board, the on
In
board.
Boston.
No,
No.
the main
Oh,
board.
board,
Yeah. They had
Yeah.
the neighborhood center. Each neighborhood center had a board,
Oh, you said that.
Yeah.
and each neighborhood center had a board, and they sent, I think, 2 members from each neighborhood center to on board of directors.
Mm.
Um,
Who were some of the people on board of directors back then?
Oh, Howie Baptista, Billy Carmel, Al Rosario, Izzy Eisner, Hudner,
what's his name?
Jack Hudner. He was the first director for president for Bristol Community College.
Mm.
He was on the board. God, who else? Ray Eisenberg.
Yeah,
Um,
there's quite a few like
They
that.
had a lot of agency people and some prominent citizens from the city of New Bedford.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, the president of Bristol Community College was on that board. And then with those folks, they had us,
Yeah,
Yeah.
who were kind of difficult to deal with because we're dealing with the issues at the neighborhood level, which those folks didn't know anything about.
Right.
They were used to dealing with the budgets and the overall operation of the agency, which was a lot different than the neighborhood level. And so we brought neighborhood issues to the board.
I think
And
the-
some of us
the
were
bus-
not well liked on that board. A couple of us, they made a
Well-
mistake. I'm serious.
Oh, I remember those days.
They
I
made
know,
a
yeah.
big mistake putting 3 of us from the South End on the steering committee for when they were developing the legal services program. I
So
don't
who
know
was
if
the
you-
three?
I don't know if you remember Lombard
yeah.
Legal Services.
Yes, I do.
yeah, because we had it.
Me, Arthur DeMello, and Ski Medeiros.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah,
Ski was the director of the South End Neighborhood Center.
yeah,
Arthur DeMello was he's an old timer. Yeah, he was an older man at the time. Well, I was 25. Arthur must have been about 45 at the time. And he was, I guess you would call him an activist in the deep South End. Not, well, I was South
Right.
Central, which is where we lived.
Mhm.
And he was in the deep South End, and he was what you would call an activist. Well, as I said, mistake, they they sent us as neighborhood representatives when they were developing the onboard legal services program. That was a huge mistake because they tried, and I never forgave them for that either. They tried to hijack the program, so to speak.
Hijack which program?
the
Legal
illegal
service.
services before it even started. They had in their minds, they had the director picked out, the assistant director, the neighborhood attorneys.
Now, what was his name, the one that was the legal services?
Ronnie Harper,
Yeah, it was Ronnie Hopper, but there was somebody else there.
Gerald
Terry Franklin.
Franklin.
No, he became the clerk of courts at one point.
Oh, John Stellato.
John Stellato.
But he was after.
Okay.
John
Yeah.
and Dan George came
Yeah.
way after.
Okay.
The
See-
program, Ronnie Harper,
What the Office for Legal Service was
Ronnie
at
Harper
that on-board
wrote
center.
the program, wrote the proposal creating onboard legal services in New Bedford. The concept of neighborhood centers with a lawyer attached to each center coming out of a central office,
Yeah.
but representing those neighborhood centers dealing with specific issues.
And
He
just to
wrote
be
the
clear,
program.
because-
Just to be clear, let me
No,
just
I
tell
just
you.
wanted to say this because to be clear, the legal services were people that could not afford
Exactly.
legal services in
Exactly.
housing and all these other issues.
Exactly. With
Okay.
those
Yeah.
mostly civil issues.
Right.
They didn't deal in any criminal issues. Just civil issues. Yeah. For people who poor people. It was set up for
Right.
poor people. Well, Ron Harper wrote the program.
Yeah.
The day they had the meeting to select the director and the attorneys, excuse me, for some reason, Arthur and I and Ski, and there was somebody else, didn't get the notice till late, like we wouldn't make it, but we were there. And I gotta tell you, that old man, Arthur DeMello, grabs me and he says, "Hey, do you know what they want to do?" I said, "What?" He says, "Ronnie Harper wrote the program, and they're going to bypass him. They're not even going to give him a job as a neighborhood attorney." I said, "Are you kidding me?" Now, I knew Ron Harper. I was good friends with Ron Harper. He lived up the street from me. Anyway, I said, "You guys." But I see, Arthur DeMello was no fool. He was stoking me. He just give me that little pinch. He said, "Wait a minute. This ain't not going to happen."
Yes, that's how
So,
Ronnie,
oh yeah.
yeah. And
So
that's
they
how
started
Ronnie
the
got
meeting.
picked.
They started a meeting and they said the first order of business is to appoint the director. And we have several candidates. And they started naming the candidates. I didn't hear Harper's name. And somebody made a motion to hire. I said, "Oh, excuse me. And I started, we started a whole lot of stuff. How the hell do you guys think you're going to get away with this? I'll get away with what, Mr. Gomes? Get away with not even submitting this man's name. He wrote the proposal. Are you trying to tell me that somebody from the outside knows what's going on with the program better than the guy who wrote it? He knows the intent and why he wrote something? You must be kidding. I'm going out there and I'm telling everybody what you guys are doing, trying to do here. What do you mean? I said, like I said, I'm going out there and I'm telling everybody that I can find in my community, in the West End community, in the North End community. I'm going to let everybody know what you folks are trying to do.
And this was the board.
Yes,
The head
this
board
is
that-
the board that's going to appoint the
Legal
onboard
service.
legal services
But just,
board.
okay, but just to be clear, this was the on-board, the head of on-board
Yes,
group, the
yes,
directors. Okay.
yes.
All right.
I said, you guys are trying to hijack a program. Poor people. Nothing personal against the guy you selected. I knew him too. He was a good guy. He was a great attorney. As it turned out, they reversed the roles. They nominated Ron Harper to take over the program. The guy they wanted to be the director became the deputy director, and then they hired the 4 attorneys. I really didn't care about the 4 attorneys. I was just angry enough. They got me pissed off enough, that I said, "This is not happening. You're not going to do this to us again." we are going to have a say on who's going to run this program.
And
For you guys to even attempt to steal this program is insulting, and we're not going to have it.
Yeah.
and again, the board of directors, were there any, you said there were people of color on there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they still were part of that
They didn't-
cahoots, or
Yeah.
they didn't pay attention, or?
Let me just say this. I will not speak ill of the dead.
Right, I get
So,
that.
I will not speak ill of the
We
dead. Let me just say that they made some deals, but
Behind
Donald
the scene.
and Arthur and the poor people on that, we're not going to have it. We're not going to be party to any deals that were going to mess up our people. And Ronnie Harper, make no mistake, Ronnie Harper was our people. Make no
Right.
mistake about
Right.
that.
Right.
Ron Harper was our people, and we weren't going to allow them to deal with what they wanted to do to him.
Right. So this was kind of like your first taste of blood.
Oh,
Kind of like the beginnings of it.
yeah, I guess.
Now,
Yeah.
was the
Yeah, I guess you could say
was
that.
the busing
No,
to
The busing didn't start yet. That
busing
didn't
had
start,
nothing
yeah.
to do with me.
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
not involved in the busing.
So I'm going to segue.
Oh yeah, it was a
into-
little bit.
Yeah,
involved
you
in the
was-
busing,
Yeah, but I
not
want,
much.
because I really want to segue in, because there's so many different
Oh, so
things
many,
that we
so
can-
many things happen.
Yeah.
things
out
that
of
we've been
yeah.
involved all our lives here in this community.
Yeah.
You guys before me, because I was still like going to
You're a
school,
kid.
whatever. But not so much a kid, but I was a little bit younger. Anyhow, yes, I was. Okay, for the record, I was much, and I'll edit that right out. But anyhow, I want to use this moment to segue into when you folks came together to begin the United Front Development Corporation, Inc.
Oh, that happened because of the, well, actually, Martin Luther King's assassination was the catalyst for the
Yeah.
United Front. At the time, there was no United Front Development Corporation. Martin Luther King's assassination was the catalyst for starting the United Front in New Bedford, and that's all it was at the time, was the United Front. Dealing with the 80 demands and all that stuff, the social issues that were going on, housing, employment, and everything else around there. So that made the 80 demands to the mayor and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so we're going to continue with how the United Front Development Corporation, it started as United Front first.
Just United Front, yeah, we
Okay.
weren't incorporated.
Because Marlene already started talking about, but I want to hear
And that
your
was in
side.
'68, right after Dr. King was assassinated, and we used to have weekly meetings in churches. Excuse me. Excuse me. In the churches.
Bless you.
Oh God, I can't remember the name of the church. It was knocked down, and there's a plaque over there where Connie Academy is built now. And
Was there a church?
we developed,
Yeah.
we developed, as I said, we met weekly. Talk about discrimination. No white folks were allowed in our meetings. Talk about, in those
There
days,
was a reason for it.
in those days, they had meetings that we weren't included
Right.
in. So, tit for tat, we said we're going to have meetings weekly, and we had weekly meetings. In any event, they were well-attended meetings too. I mean, there was a lot of folks.
How did you get the people there? What was the initial word out there in the street?
Oh, it was, believe it or not, there was no social media, there was no Facebook or none of that stuff. So it was
Right.
all word of mouth, flyers, and whatever. Once the meetings, the first meeting, once we had that first meeting, it didn't matter, because then you just told people, well, we're meeting here next week, same time.
And what did you tell them you was meeting for?
Well, we
Yeah,
talked.
80 demands.
Yeah, exactly. The first meeting was an overall view of what was going on, everything that was happening in terms of
Community.
the community. Exactly.
So who were the demands to?
The mayor. They
Okay.
were going to submit the demands to the mayor. But
Mayor Harrington.
we talked about those things and said, hey, we're going to meet next week and we're going to start developing the plan. And then you broke up into little groups to do housing, employment, whatever, what else, education.
All right, let me just back up a second here, because you came together as this united front, but why? Because you're saying after Martin Luther King was assassinated, somebody must have said, hey, look, we have to get a group together to do what?
To tell you the truth, when we talked about having this meeting today to talk about this stuff, I was trying to figure it out, and I can't remember how it started.
It was just like one of those
It's
things
just
that
like one of those
came
things
about.
just blew,
Yeah.
Right.
blew up
Just
and
started
said,
talking
hey,
about it.
well, we ought to meet. Martin Luther King was talking about all the inequities that were going on and all the things that were happening to black people, all the discrimination that was going on against people of color. We ought to meet and talk about stuff that's going on in New Bedford.
Yeah.
And whoever said that didn't matter,
Right.
because all of a sudden you had 10 people, 20 people saying, hey, we're going to meet. Hey, there's a meeting at, what's the name of it? Was this the Jehovah's Witness Church down there on Cushion Avenue? No longer exists, of course. And then from there we moved to this church. Oh, God, Donald, I wish I could remember the name. That
We
aggravates me.
can probably find it. It was
And
on,
anyway.
it was on Mill Street.
No,
right
right over
on-
here on
on
Kempton
Kempton
Street.
On Kempton Street.
Yeah, it
Across
was
the
one of the
street.
black churches. We had 3 black churches in
Okay,
the
Kyle
city.
would know that.
Yeah, it was
Kyle, we'll
3.
find
There's
out.
a plaque there. When you go out, there's a plaque on
Yeah.
this side of the street.
Now, Union Baptist is over here.
Yeah.
Union Baptist
Right.
and the other church
The
is
AME,
AME.
Zion Church.
Maybe is that Zion?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the one over
Right.
here on County Street.
Yeah.
That's the AME Bethel, right?
That's Bethel.
Yeah.
So it was a Zion,
Okay.
AME over here.
Okay.
That's where we met. We
Right.
used to meet as the United Front. And then we just started to write up the 80 demands for presentation
At
to
those meetings, yeah.
after several meetings. The 80 demands were developed, and we're going to submit them to then Mayor Harrington, Eddie Harrington.
So let me just ask you this. The minister of that church, or whatever they call him, pastor minister, he was open to this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted
Oh,
to know
yeah.
if
remember
you
that.
wanted to.
I don't even remember who it was.
Yeah, we could
But
find that out, but
we were all young then, so
he was
he was
Yeah.
obviously in favor because he opened up the church.
to you because of that.
Yeah, and we met in different rooms and developed it. Education, housing, employment, whatever.
So you have a copy of those demands still? today, Marlene? I know we
Marlene's
kept a lot
got
of
them.
stuff. You don't have to
Somebody's
look
got
for it
them.
now. But it'll
Somebody
just
got
be
them.
interesting to
Yeah.
see what those demands
You know what?
were.
So many people
I bet you would.
ask
We
me
could
for
be dealing with
demands,
them
and
now.
You
I
said
bet-
what? You bet what?
I said, I'll bet you there's not much different than that from then to down now. And
Yeah.
people might want to disagree with that, but
Mm-hmm.
just
I go.
just to give you an example, we're dealing with this foolishness up the north end in terms of developing developing
school.
a housing.
Right.
I have a problem because in my mind it's a no-brainer
Right.
in terms of the financial package.
Right.
But then you start saying, why are these people opposed? And you start looking at, well, look at who the developer is.
Yeah, and it's the
And then look at the income range for the cost of the apartments, and it becomes an issue of, are they really worried about the financial stuff that it's going to cost,
Or
or are
who's
they
moving
worried
in.
about who's going to come up here and live in these
live in it.
17 apartments?
Right. So we'll get back
So
to that.
no, I'm just
know.
it's an aside, but it's an aside that goes
Shows,
back to this.
Right.
We're not that far from 1968, as people like to think. Man, 1968, that's 50 years ago, 51 years ago. And we're still dealing with this foolishness about who's coming to live into this neighborhood. Come on.
Yeah. And we know
But
it.
anyway, to get back
all the
to
strides that we make, and then with this president
we'll
in there
slide
now,
right back.
we're going right back.
Exactly.
So
And
so
I
you
say
make the
that as an
demand.
aside
Right.
because of the 80 demands. The housing
Right.
was the same kind of stuff. Discrimination in housing, in any event.
So it was a list of 80 demands, and it was
Yeah, we
separated
presented
into
the
housing,
mayor,
education.
and he had we had a presentation on a Monday morning, and he said, "I'll get back to you on tomorrow," and he had all the answers for the 80 demands. He was a good enough politician that he could do that offhand and give you some responses to all 80 demands. I mean, the
Yeah.
guy was that good, but he said, "I'll get back to you tomorrow," and we kind of figured out that somehow the 80 demands leaked
Ah.
to him.
So he had his answers already typed up or whatever.
He was ready for us. That's all I can tell you. He was ready for us. But we didn't let him off the hook. We continued to pound and pound the city with those 80 demands, even though he gave the political answers. The answers he gave to us they weren't for us. Those answers he gave were for the public, for his public, which is okay, because we understood
That's how he got
that.
elected.
Because exactly.
Yeah.
But meeting with him privately, the conversations turned different. Well, here's what we can do for this, and here's what we can do with that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We start to resolve some of those issues without the politics. Once you get behind the closed doors, and that's how it worked. I learned a lot from that guy. Excuse me, Eddie Harrington. I learned a lot from him. How you get things done. You don't get things done out here.
Yeah.
You get things done behind that door.
Why do you think they have golf courses and private clubs? Yeah, that's where they do it.
And nothing's changed about that, as you can see.
Right.
In
And we
any
did.
event,
So let's go ahead
at some point, oh, I know what it was. One of the issues that Eddie brought to us, one of the things he says, hey, you guys are so interested in resolving the housing problem, why don't you go develop some housing? Why don't you get involved in providing housing?
Ed Harrington said that.
Eddie Harrington. So somebody, I can't tell you who, said, well, why don't we incorporate?
Yeah, I don't know if it was
It might have
Peter,
been Billy.
Billy.
It might have been Billy.
Because
Yeah.
he was already doing housing and real
Yeah,
estate. at
it
the
might
time.
have been Billy.
Yeah.
Billy was already involved in
But he was
housing.
separate from us.
And you know, Billy
Yeah.
Kama was an excellent architect, and he and developer, and he did in construction. He did all that stuff. So it might have been him that said, "Why don't we incorporate the United Front Development Corporation?" And they did.
Yeah. That's
In 68, the end of 68, December 68, as a matter of fact. Then some of us stayed on. I wasn't even involved in the incorporation, but I was chairman of the Front, the United Front, not the Development Corporation. At the time, I was chairman of the United Front. And we stayed on. Some of us stayed on when they incorporated. Some of the incorporators disappeared. A lot of the incorporators disappeared, as a matter of fact.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like Billy Kama was an incorporator.
Oh.
He was gone.
Yeah.
Jack Custodio was an incorporator. He was gone.
a lot of
Yeah.
people didn't want
A
to.
lot of people who signed the incorporation papers
Right.
did not want to
us
be involved in
with
that
us.
daily grind
Okay.
of the United Front.
So that's
we
what I
were
want to
doing.
get into, because when Marlene started talking about this, and she says, you don't know where we went
Oh,
back and forth.
we bought 5 houses at different times. We bought 5 different houses.
How?
Went to
We
the
went to
bank.
the
Well,
bank.
I know, but I'm,
At the banks,
yeah.
you gotta
They had
understand,
money
the
there.
banks were, because of what developed, came out of the April, the May kinds of things happening, the marches. We forgot to mention that there were peace marches, and
Here in Bedford.
protest marches. Yes, there were several.
So when I ask you these questions,
Yeah.
I'm asking for the
No,
people that
I
are gonna
understand.
watch.
There were several protest marches in the city from the time Dr. King got assassinated till even when we incorporated. There were maybe 4 or 5 different protest marches around the city, around downtown, around city, specifically just around City Hall. I mean, there was a few. And then it got incorporated in December, and the following year. So the banks were,
Waiting.
yeah,
More or less.
they knew
Yeah.
something was going to happen. So when we approached them, when they were approached to give us the loans to purchase the properties, they were amenable to that because of the publicity that had happened with the protest march and all that stuff that's going on in the summer. So they gave us the loans.
So when you went for the loans, you already knew what places you wanted to purchase, or you didn't?
A lot of them were.
Yeah, but we got recommendations from Billy. He recommended like
A lot of the
people don't know.
houses
We own on the corner over here, Chancery and
with the store.
where the store is, that
Right.
variety
Chancery,
store.
Hampton.
We own that building.
We owned the
Kitty corner across that is an empty lot.
Right.
There now there was a house there. We owned that house.
and then there was
We owned the house on Court Street.
and Park. There was a bakery years ago.
Right.
We owned that.
We owned
And
that
Lena
house.
had her store there, right?
Yeah.
Lena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we owned a house down on Maxfield Street.
Hillman,
But you didn't
Hillman.
have the
Hillman
authority
Street.
to take houses by eminent domain?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Well, a
We
lot
did.
of the houses were under the bank. The bank had taken over some
Yeah.
of the property, so they
So
would
they
let
gave us
us.
some money.
Okay.
We could go in and
Yeah.
do the little rehab and little paint here and wallpaper there and
Give for
rent
people
it to
to.
poor people,
Okay.
supposedly. Well, people from the housing authority.
So once you started that, and then the whole concept for
Of
doing
housing.
the housing.
Yeah, and then, well, somebody,
Urban
Urban
Renewal
Renewal was
started
in,
here in
in
West End.
West End Urban Renewal was going on. And they were talking about developing housing where they obviously we're at now. But they had 2 parcels here. And they were, wanted to, and the parcel across the street, of course, Bedford Towers, the Bedford Bedford Townhouses. The corner was was designated for the high rise. Across the street, the 2 lots were designated for low rise buildings. They weren't sure what they were going to do with it, and their initial proposal was to us, the United Front Development Corporation, UFDC, to have half the property, and was it Wesley Associates, I think,
Yeah.
to get the other half. Well, we had already in contact with
Howie.
no, Justin Gray Associates,
Yeah.
and they said that's not going to work.
What wasn't going to work? You.
That's us splitting this parcel.
Okay.
It's not going to work. The way to make it work was to get the whole thing. So we had a meeting with the then director of the redevelopment authority, and after several
Yeah, Howie.
meetings,
Because he
Hooting
He
and
could-
hollering.
Yeah.
when making sense
Yeah.
to do it, he decided to give us the whole parcel.
Who decided?
Howie.
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 Howie made the decision as executive director that he would recommend to the redevelopment authority, the board of the redevelopment authority, that the United Front Development Corporation, UFDC, be the developers for the whole project, the whole site.
And
from
and
then on,
then the rope works got on fire.
oh, but that's
Yeah.
that's all the rope works was part of this development.
Yeah.
Right.
So for us to develop it,
Yeah.
we would have to demolish the rope works. Anyway, we were
Right.
going to be the developers of the site, and that just an aside.
Now, the question I asked Marlene, which is my little detective brain here, sometimes I get into these things, but do you think that somebody set that fire with
Oh,
rope works?
in my mind, I have no doubt that it was not spontaneous combustion.
I remember that fire.
It
so I'm
could
just-
have
and
been.
Especially, it could have been, but it just seems to
But
come
it
in
just-
here.
it was-
Because wouldn't that been one of the places that they would have taken eminent domain? Wouldn't they have taken
well,
that?
Well, the Reed Development's already owned it, as far as I remember.
Who already owned it?
The Reed
Oh, the
Development's
redevelopment,
already-
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reed Development's already owned it.
Okay.
But it,
Yeah. Because they
it
were getting
saved
ready
on
to
demolition costs.
Of course, we know about demolition costs.
Yeah.
Okay.
It saved on demolition costs.
Yeah, and Lord, none of us knew any thugs out there. God forbid.
No, heck no. I didn't know any thugs that would set fires like that. But all of a sudden, this thing gets caught on fire, and now we have
Land.
clear sight. Because all they had to do was bring the bulldozer in and sweep up the ashes.
If I can
Unbelievable.
remember,
Yeah.
I think when urban renewal came in and took over the West End, the plan for urban renewal before we got involved thinking was to do a mall up here in the West End. That was Harry Baptiste and the mayor and them at that time.
Their discussion was that we're going to redevelop and take
that's
all these
what-
houses there. Your Uncle
Yeah.
Tony and
Yeah.
Linda had the house here.
39 Cedar Street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they were going to take these houses
Yeah.
and make a business area
Just
here.
turn it over
Yeah.
to, and we
But
said
I think
no.
that fell through because the necessity for housing
Right, and they
became
they had
more
dislocated
acute.
relocated all these
Exactly.
people.
And we're
became
going to bring
more
them
And they
acute
made a
back.
when-
promise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but became more acute when they took over these houses in the area and knocked them down.
That's when we got on in front and said, okay, we build houses
Well,
to
we'll
put the
build the
people
housing, yeah.
back.
And we got involved with Justin Gray Associates, and
Yeah.
the rest is history.
So who do you think was your biggest advocate or one of your biggest barriers at that time to doing this project when
The
you
people.
first did it? The people, which people?
The neighborhood.
The neighborhood. They didn't want this development.
Yeah, they didn't think we'd do it.
And these are people of color?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always said this development should have been named Spite,
Nice fight.
because we built, you're
In
laughing,
spite of it,
Yeah.
we built United Front Homes in spite of
of their resistance.
all the people that said it wouldn't get done, and
'Cause
all
they
the
had no
resistance, and all the resistance that was going on. We met every week,
Yeah.
except Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Every week for 18 months. Every single week for 18 months. Not knowing whether we were going to get the funding or not. Fortunately, we picked the right team to be our guide. Justin Gray Associates.
Yeah.
Right.
We had an attorney that stuck with us.
Ray
These
Lance.
guys were doing this all on contingency. The contingent on getting funded, they would get paid. So naturally,
Lawler.
everything.
Yeah.
Well, Lawler.
No, I'm saying the guys, the lawyers involved in
the
them
lawyers,
days.
yeah.
But
Our
as I was
lawyer
telling
was-
Marlene, I said, this was a major feat for you folks to accomplish.
Well, no.
And the thing though is that the people in the community, for them not to support and believe, but that's conditioned.
Yeah.
They're being conditioned from what they
So anyway,
other people say
we're
out
one
there.
of one of the maybe 3 or 4
corporation.
nonprofit
Oh,
organizations like us in the country
Still
that are
was
still operating and still
full.
involved with housing.
Would
There
you
was
do it
one
again?
in 6. Oh yeah. I would definitely do it again. I probably would do it differently, but I would do
Yeah.
it again.
What would you have done
We would
differently?
do a non-profit.
I would exactly.
Right, because
Exactly.
everybody else does for profit, and that's not a
Exactly.
problem. But when
Exactly.
black folks got out there and tried to make money,
Yeah,
it's a problem.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and
Exactly.
especially with the, with the resistance you was having from the community,
Exactly.
it wasn't a problem.
I mean, I see that happening with the Cruz brothers now.
It
I
still
mean,
goes on.
Yeah.
It has the
You can't
it has
get-
the connotation of crabs in a barrel on one end, and then white
yeah,
folks that, and I'm
exactly.
sorry, white folks that don't want you to do it on the other end.
And I'm a little upset. Don't even get me involved with talking about crabs in a barrel, because
Say it.
I'm getting really upset about some of our elected officials of color.
Well, I know.
I am extremely upset about that, but that's another story.
That's another story.
That's
can
a
deal
story
with
for
in
another
another,
time.
another segment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But get back to here. We started this thing in with the building, 1972.
And I should say some white folks. I always make
Yeah,
that clarification
yeah.
because there was white
Oh,
folks that have been
listen.
supportive
Oh, yeah, there's
for
some
us
that-
forever.
Listen,
Oh,
Justin
yeah.
Gray
There's some that
Associates,
didn't, yeah.
there's no
They're
people
all
of color
white.
with him. They were all white.
Right, and
As
they
a matter
would
of fact, I
definitely
just
help.
got in contact with Jim Stockard.
Oh yeah, where is he?
He's in Cambridge. He's
Okay,
still
I
in
have his
Cambridge.
address here somewhere.
He was the social planner for Justin Gray Associates.
Yeah,
And Aunt Wally Berger
was
is
the
in New
architect.
York. He was the architect.
Would he ever be
What-
interested in coming down and talking
Oh,
about
the
this?
Oh,
Yeah,
Jim
oh.
would. Wally's 90-something years old. He's
Yeah,
writing his memoirs. I met with his.
He should come down too.
I met his.
Yeah, I don't think he's in the travel.
Yeah, I
I
don't
know.
think he's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
don't.
that would be interesting to
But
get
he's
some of the old
his,
folks.
his niece is doing his memoirs.
Nice.
I met with
Yeah.
her, talked to her.
Yeah, we went out for lunch
Yeah,
one day.
remember?
Yeah.
So
and,
just to get back on
But Jim
track.
Stockard, to get back to the United Front,
Yeah.
the social planner, we started talking about all kinds of stuff here. And Wally Berger
Yeah.
um,
Phil Rogers.
did a great job designing the apartments, because not a bit of space was wasted. If he had open space, he made it a closet or something,
Right.
or a cupboard, a storage area. There was no wasted space in the original United Front homes. And my contention is that our units are bigger and better than the high price units that people are paying now to North End.
And you have photos of you guys
Yeah.
signing papers on. So now we go from United Front, and the thing that always bothered me and always bothered people that accepted this being one of the nicest developments is when the police started targeting and saying everything that was bad was happening in United Front. They always United Front. I don't care if it was down the street, United Front. And we started talking about that. So you decided, you came in, you rehabbed the whole place again. Now where did funding come from for that?
A combination of places.
Combination
Some
of
of the
places.
MHFA, FHA,
Right.
some private,
This man here,
private funding.
he's the one that helped us to get.
So
Oh,
and,
Stan,
and
yeah.
then you did a fabulous job once again,
Yeah.
creating something that people come in and they go, well, where's your ghetto? And we say, well, this
Well,
is our
you know
low
what?
income,
We-
our low income developments, and they're like astonished when they see this
Well,
place.
what happened is it goes to our partners initially in the United Front was the Marlene, I forgot, I got a dead
The
brain
partners?
about our general partners initially. It was National Housing Partnership.
Oh, National
NHP.
Housing. Yeah,
It's a national organization.
yeah.
And then we decided that they wanted to sell it, but they can't sell it under us. We got to agree. So
Right.
we
Yeah.
decided that we offered Peabody Properties initially
Oh, he said,
to
no
become
way.
a partner. But they wanted to put us in an advisory capacity.
Marlene had mentioned that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that was not going to happen. I mean, we said to them, "Are you crazy? All of us, not half of us, all of us have given over half our lives to this development, project, if you want to call it. And do you really think we're just going to give it up? No. You got to do better than that.
Right.
So we contacted this POA,
Yeah.
and
We
because
interviewed.
we had interviewed them years
Different
prior
one.
before that, but then we got serious after this debacle with Peabody that we got a hold of POA again, and we interviewed them and said, they said, no, you'll be an equal partner.
Yeah, Marlene mentioned
And
that too.
Yeah.
it worked out. What's her name?
Paul, Amy Anthony.
Amy Anthony, God rest her
Right.
soul. It's
She passed away.
yeah,
Yeah.
not too long ago, last month.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she sent a couple of her people down, and we started dealing with them. And Roger Brown. Yeah.
So let me ask
And
you
we
this.
got the financing together, and the package was
Mhm.
a lot different than the old days when you know.
So has your group ever got any recognition from the city for this
Yeah.
project?
We got a plaque.
You got a plaque from the city?
Yeah.
When was that?
Roger, what's his name? George
Judge Rogers.
George Rogers gave us a plaque.
Oh, the city council, I think.
Yeah.
The city council.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's just like I said, I can't get over the
Yeah,
work that
right.
you folks did
Right
and the
from the
amazing
beginning,
job. And
yeah.
now this place is still looking as well and maintained and
They're
managed
doing a
so
good
well.
job.
Yeah.
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 She's,
So I really would like to continue this if we could get that other person down here at some point. But for the finale of this conversation, what would you like to say in terms of how you feel about where it's at right now, the development?
I think it's in a good place right now. We have a local manager. When I say local, I mean the manager here now works for POA, obviously, because they do the management,
They
POA
do the
management. And but she's a local person. She's born and raised here. And not only born and raised here in New Bedford,
Right.
born and raised here
Yeah,
in this neighborhood.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
that's a good thing, and I think it puts the development in a good place because
Of course she
has a vested
direct
interest in
vested
making
interest in it.
making this thing go right. And Marlene tells me that they just had this big inspection.
Yeah, big
that does-
inspection
that
with all
does-
the banks and
from
everything. came.
MHFA,
Yeah.
it's MHFA and a whole bunch of other people.
100, they came,
called like-
88.
Yeah, React inspection, and
Right.
they did very well, so.
Yeah, she
And you
just
got,
told
and the
me.
community center was named, the room named after you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
incidentally, yeah.
Which is very nice. So what is your go away response to all the work that you folks have done with this, development? I mean, you're proud of your accomplishments.
Just proud.
Yeah.
Proud, and
And you're living here too.
I'm living here
So
and
that's
paying
another
the
thing.
rent.
Oh, well, we know that. We know that. That's,
Paying the
yeah.
rent.
We
I make sure, there's a lot of people was kind of sketchy about, she got
And you know what,
another
Molly?
part,
And if you was getting free rent, I mean, after all the work you did, but I know we don't do that. We
Yeah.
always ones
Yeah.
that like, no, we,
But I
you
get,
know.
I get little, attitudes.
There's no
and so-
nepotism,
yeah.
no other stuff where
No.
it's gonna be,
Right.
where they can question.
She doesn't get any perks out
Right.
of being a member of the board.
Right.
She has got no perks. She never even asked for perks. You know
And
what
if you was
aggravates?
Trump, you get all kind of perks.
You know what? Yeah, no kidding. What aggravates me when she lived over there on the other end of the other
Well,
apartment,
wait,
when she had a dog.
yeah,
People were
Raising.
raising hell about the dog. She
Yeah.
had to get rid of the dog.
Yeah,
reason,
yeah,
yeah,
I remember raising.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
But I like to brag that this is ours.
absolutely, you should.
Yeah,
If there's
That was
nothing
a
else
lot
that
of
belongs to,
yeah.
it's not
Per
ours.
se, right.
It belongs to every person of color in the city of New
City,
Bedford.
yeah.
Right,
And if they looked at it that way and took some ownership, we'd have no problems up here.
right. But it's like people, especially young folks,
The
they lose
crabs
sight of
and the
history. They
crabs.
lose sight of history too, and why it started. I
Yes.
had to tell people where the name Temple came from. I had to explain to them who Lewis Temple
Yeah,
was.
people
and
don't
everything.
understand
They
that.
don't even understand.
Yeah,
They say, "Oh, I live
yeah.
at Temple's Landing." Have no clue. And I think once people realize the history and take ownership of that history, they have more pride,
Pride
and
and
care
respect.
about
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they're living.
Yeah.
Like
So,
I said before, amongst our own, there's a lot of jealousy.
right.
And everybody had that.
They don't have to be jealous of me. I ain't got nothing.
Yeah.
They ain't gonna
But
have
they-
nothing,
they-
and I don't care.
When you say ownership, they think we're
This is
making
ours,
money.
man.
Yes.
This
I
is
always-
ours. You know.
I always
Right.
have to put non-profit ownership.
Right. Right.
Because if you say ownership, you own, yeah.
Yeah.
How come you're working in Shaw's? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go
know.
200 units and you're working here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
People don't
even
understand,
going
but
to
that's
board
okay.
meetings, they
They
think
don't.
we're working
That's
there.
okay.
We're getting paid.
But
So
that's
we
but
made
and
that.
again, that's because people will jump to conclusions and they don't
Yeah.
read.
Read.
They don't look at history. They don't know any of that. They just assume or hearsay.
Yeah.
Like
Like we have pictures in the community building as you come in the building. There's pictures. People don't even look at it.
no.
And the plaque, we have a big plaque. People don't even read to know that we're owners.
Right.
We're ownership. So,
Right.
that's part of it. That
Hey,
goes with,
Marlene was one of 3 women that was on this board at the time.
yeah.
Who was the other two?
Vera Hunt and Wilhelmina Wilhelmina Clark.
Clark. Right.
Yeah.
And those, it's strange because Wilhelmina was a signer at that initial.
She was the
petition.
clerk.
She was the clerk for the incorporation.
Yeah.
Vera Hunt was the original signer. And then, but other than that,
Yeah.
the rest of Sam Graham was a member too.
Yeah. Sam Graham.
Was a signer. I'm trying to think
Lloyd
who else.
Haddocks.
And Deacon, but he wasn't a signer of the
No.
incorporation. Sam Graham was. Wilhelmina was.
It was just us.
I think
and
those.
Lou.
But the rest
Lou
of
and
us
I.
on Lou, Marlene, myself,
Most all of
uh,
it got my name.
Sam. We were.
Yeah.
We just decided to stay from the front, United Front, to the UFDC.
Right.
We just stayed, and like I said, we had some hot and heavy meetings
Well, that's what she started
for
talking
2
about.
years.
Yeah.
Oh
that,
my God!
Um,
Oh my
so
God!
we can get into that when the other gentleman, if we can get him here at
Ooh.
some point.
Justin
when he was just
Gray?
talking about, yeah, I know he wasn't part of those meetings, but I think we can elaborate more on that. If we can get him.
Oh,
down.
Stockard,
Stockard, yeah.
Jim Stockard,
Jim
probably the
Stockard,
guy.
yeah.
Wally can't come.
Wa-
Yeah,
Wally
that's
Camp.
okay.
And
Whoever.
Justin
Jim Stockard,
Gray
I
is-
kept his email
Yeah.
because I was reading something.
What's his last name?
Stockard, Stockard,
Yeah.
James Stockard. He's a professor at Harvard. He
Oh,
teaches
yeah.
at Harvard.
And there's a
How I got to email him was the kid from the young lady from POA. The young lady from POA that
Brenda.
no. The young lady that we met that was talking about the new project they want to do.
I don't remember her name.
Yeah, I forget her name too now.
I think I had
Awful.
just came from. Was,
Anyway,
yeah.
she emailed me, and I talked to her on the phone. She says, "Oh, I was talking about you the other day." I said, "Talking about me?" She says, "Yeah, Jim Stockard."
Oh.
I was taking a class with Jim Stockard, and I told him I work for POA, and we were doing something with United Front. And he says, "Whoa, how was Donald Gomes and Marlene Tavares?" I said, "Jim Stockard." She says, "Yeah." I said, "God,
Yeah.
that's a blast from the past."
Geez.
So I emailed his.
See that picture down on the bottom there? Yep.
So I
Those
put
are
his
from
name in.
Harvard. Those kids are from Harvard.
Oh, okay.
Jeannie,
They're
I
the
put
ones
his
that-
name in the computer. It comes up. James Stockard won this award. He won a couple of awards,
Yep.
architectural awards and
Okay.
social planning awards.
Yep.
So I emailed his address. It's at Harvard. So I said to him, "Is this the right Jim Stockard? My name is Donald Gomes from the United Front Development Corporation." Da, 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 da. 3 seconds later, I get, "Yep, this is the right."
Yeah, I think he's a professor of that group.
I was all excited, man. I said, "Oh wow!" So we, back and forth.
Yeah.
We said, "Hey, keep
So
in
you're
touch."
still in touch with him?
Well, that was it. That's
Okay,
it. I
that's-
said,
yeah.
"We're
He
going to
wasn't
get,
before
we're going to get in
except for
touch."
this
He's going to
group.
come down. He said, "Geez, I want to get down there." I said, "Well, let me know when you're coming. We'll do lunch or something. We'll go take a visit, so show you the development." He says,
Okay, so that works
Yeah.
because you guys
Yeah,
let me
these
know
kids,
ahead of time. I'm going to
these-
shut this down now.
"Some of these kids are from Harvard, and when they were doing, as a matter of fact, this group won an award for
Yeah.
some project they did
Are they
with
from
Temple
here?
Landing."
No.
No.
They're
They're
from all,
students.
anywhere, from Harvard.
Right.
The students from MIT. There
No,
was
I know
a mixed
it's for
group.
Harvard, but I was
Yeah.
just wondering
No,
where
it's a
they-
mixed group. MIT, Harvard. This
Yeah.
group is a mixed group, and they were doing a collaborative project, and they chose Temple Landing as their subject.
Okay.
And whatever they did, I can't remember what the specifics of the thing was, but whatever they did won that particular contest or whatever the heck it was.
Did you get a copy of it?
Oh no,
No,
the kids they just
it's
emailed
for
us.
them,
So let us know.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying that would be nice to have.
Yeah.
a copy
Yeah,
of it
they
too,
should've.
what they did, yeah. All right, so I'm going to stop now. Wave to the camera.
See you next time.
Bye.